So I'm very happy to introduce our friend as the first guest of the 10th season of ALUO uho. And our dean will say a few more words about him and why they connected and why he applied him. So
thank you, Sarah. Dear guests, dear colleagues, dear students, I'm welcoming you. It's really a great pleasure to introduce you to Andre Dekker, who is a contemporary artist, who is doing collaborative work as part of Observatorium collective. We have good news in these terrible times that we just opened a academic garden in front of the academia. We didn't use it really yet. And as Sarah said, Andre Dekker guided, run this workshop titled Academic Garden, the garden as a work of art. And just an hour ago, they presented the ideas, a manual which we will use for future thinking, how to use this place in front of the academy, which today officially became Academic Garden. So, Andre Dekker is an artist based in Rotterdam, Holland. In a collective Observatorium, we are working since '97, and they did more than 50 public artworks around the world, from New York to Berlin, London, many places in Holland and France. And in this lecture we will speak about it. So thank you, Andre, again, that you came at the Academy and to work with us, and we use your manual in the future. So, Andre,
hello everyone. I speak on behalf of 4 people, Ruud, Geert, Lieven, and me. We together are the collective. We do everything together. We are running, let's say, the business of public art. We are organized like landscape architects. That's the organization. But we are individually, each one of us, artists that bring their own specialty into the work. My part is words, ideas, concepts, all the things that you need language for. That's why I'm here. And that's why I'm telling you that this is my most dear word. We have someone in the audience who's informing the world about landscape architecture. And I had a short conversation with him, and he said, so you are collaborating with landscape architects, but in a way it is still, you are not doing the topography of the land itself. My last project today will be just topography and some art. We like the ensemble of the land, the society, and the artwork. If you visit good gardens, then there's always this intense collaboration between the sculptor and the landscape architect. If you go to a sculpture garden, that's already something really different. Then the garden is the background of the sculpture. I want ensemble. That is my mission. So when I do artworks, I seek collaboration with the landscape architect, with the municipality, with the water management, with the people living there. Each one has his discipline. In the best of worlds, the artwork is, let's say, pulling people together to go for their own dream. In short, we do not do public art for public space. for life. I told you, we work with people, and it is for people. It's not for the space. Public art should be for the public life. We had a lively meeting just now in the garden. That is public life. The garden is a use for that. Yeah, it's a bold mission. But you have to have big words sometimes, and then try to be modest. So in essence, we create space that makes someone feel at home in a place he doesn't know. And we, because we are called Observatorium, we say, look at the world. You could look at the artwork, but then you miss out on the world. So, also here, it is ensemble, the artwork and the world, and the use of it. In a nutshell, this is what we do. It was a very nice commission. Someone said, we have all these hostels on the way to Santiago de Compostela, but it is so crowded, we need the artists to be more inventive. So he invited us as one of 12 to make new shelters, artistic shelters for the people, the pilgrims. And these are sort of the first pilgrims that were staying in our tower. And this is how we do it. And they sleep in those 4 boxes. Maybe you know that from farms. The people used to sleep in the wall. And to make a connection, we used that octagonal tower of the UNESCO World Heritage as a basic form for our tower. So it's, you know, the second tower of this village, but it is, the purpose is for the pilgrims that pass by. They use this at night, and in the morning they proceed. This is an overview of all the kinds of shapes that we have been doing over time. Bridges, viewpoints, theatre stages, development of natural environments, development of urban sites like this. I'm always very keen to show this. This is one of our very first. And the very special thing about it is actually that it is a very, very well-known landmark, because it is on the highway. Everybody's on the highway, so everybody knows it. And for most of the people, it is a complete mystery what it is. It's something unknown in that highway world where you know everything. But actually it's a garden, of course. It's an enclosed space, and we have been using the asphalt of the highway and the crash barriers of the highway. And the good thing is, from the car, nobody recognizes the materials. Very strange. This is a detail of it. We love using ordinary materials for exceptional sites. And sometimes you're lucky and you take a picture and you say, oh God, this is like a Japanese stone garden. The professor in Munich, landscape architecture.
Which one?
In Munich.
What is on
Udo. Udo. This is Udo, professor of landscape architecture, with his students. And this is me when we were celebrating This is sort of emotional for me. I used to work for the Goethe Institute in Rotterdam, the German Cultural Institute, and I was promoting German culture to the Dutch. And when we made the yellow artwork in the pavilion, it was to commemorate the airplanes, the bombers flying over Rotterdam to drop food. So it is a memorial for something really special in Rotterdam. And I invited the ambassador of Germany, of course, to be present. And everybody asked me, why do we do that? And the answer came from the man who initiated the monument. He said, the Germans allowed, actually, they cleared the air for the English bombers to drop the food. It was a collaboration. It was the end of the war. They couldn't carry anymore. So that's why the German flag is also here, with the Canadian, the Australian, the American, etc. And this garden is in use. People go there to look at the highway, to meet, to see suburb. You know? The good thing is everybody knows it from the car, but if you go there, you look back at the car. Does anyone ever look at cars moving? It's an exceptional sight. Sometimes I see queues of cars coming into existence. It's just marvelous. It's like a natural event. You see cars and people acting as sand or as rain. This is the entrance of the port of Rotterdam. North Sea, reclaimed land and dunes. Building with nature. One smart guy said, we can use the forces of nature to create things that protect us against nature. If you do it well, you can make a foundation for a dune, and the dune will grow, and you will have a higher sea defense. And that is what is happening here. As you can see, we put the artwork next to an artificial dune, and that was 7 years ago. This was the area before. It is new land that takes sand from the North Sea, splash it onto the coast, and then you have an extension of the port. And at that side, so this is the port of Rotterdam, the entrance 20 years ago, and it now looks like this. And as you can see, there's a beach around it. And here is a little corner for building with nature. And as you can see, the sand is going everywhere. So they had to manage the growing of the dunes all the time. And now it is sort of, let's say, it is now in the shape that we were looking for. It's not nearing the road anymore. The design of that, so we wanted to make sure that everybody knows what is happening. You take sand, the dune grows, there's nothing but sand in there. Can we do a sculpture that is made of sand? And that is maybe also telling you what is happening in the future. We looked at these images, and this is the way dunes grow, and that is the way how sand moves. Sand is not rolling, it is jumping. One grain collides with the next grain and crazy. So, and that is what we then made this structure of. This shows you how the dune is growing and how sand is moving. If you, and in the model, we tell everyone that the sculpture will disappear. building with nature also implies that sculpture will disappear. This is the June of, let's say, 12 years. This here is the June in 40 years. When we are all dead, the June will be as high as this sculpture. It's an open structure, but you can still hide. It's an open structure and you can still, let's say, you think you are in an interior. Many people say it feels like a cathedral without walls. And here you can see that the June is coming. So at first, the sculpture was on top of the June. And now it is already in a bowl of sand. Those grasses are growing everywhere, and here already the sculpture is disappearing. And everybody's excited about that. Everybody loves this idea. And sometimes they write messages to the Port of Rotterdam, the owner of this sculpture. Never ever clean the sculpture. We want to see it disappear. It makes really so clear what is happening outside. You know? The world is in movement all the time. Ljubljana 10 years ago is not the Ljubljana of now. It has changed so much. Everything has changed so much. So with our sculpture we try to create a site and a moment where you can be aware of those permanent slow changes around you. This one tells the story of quite fast change. I'll go back to this picture now. This was the bright idea of the Minister of Infrastructure in Paris. He said, I want a highway and it needs to end at the Cathedral of Nantes. Bang in the middle. A lot of protest, of course. And while the process was going on for maybe 40 years, Mother Nature came and made a forest. And this forest now is Natura 2000. It has 6 different biotopes. It is the most precious place. It is that precious that you cannot enter. It's a secret garden. But we thought, well, the secret garden needs to have an entrance. And you need to have a viewing platform to look inside. And, well, where does the shape come from? So this is that secret garden in the middle of the city. It's intense. When you are up in a high-rise, it's amazing what you see, the kinds of birds and plants. We were allowed to go inside, of course. That's the privilege of artists sometimes. And we said, this could be a very public space, right on the edge of the secret space. And we will, is that the next one? This is the drawing we did. We looked at pictures of French highways, and we said we are going to build 20 meters of highway. From here to there is 20 meters. And this is the exact size of a French highway. But we made it in French oak wood. Very, very expensive. The French had a lot of money for this work. And it is part of a large art trail which goes from Nantes to the ocean. It's called Estuaire. Very good organization. And then you discover that, let's say, the design of a highway for cars is also so very, let's say, gentle for meeting and for having views and for, you know, it's a sort of it's an open space, but at the same time it feels like a stage. And that is a discovery we made along the way. That when you make a road from here to there, it is an ordinary space. If the road is this high, people behave as if they are on a catwalk. And they are aware of the others seeing them. So Observatorium is creating a space for observing, but it is also to be observed. That is, and still we try to, let's say, keep a moment of quiet. For us, we are successful when someone stands still. Have you ever seen someone in the city standing still, just like that? Apart from the Japanese tourist? No! We never stand still. So that is our ambition. And we told the municipality to let the grasses grow around it. At first it was sort of a neglected space. We always like to state that sculpture is time. It's not only space. The whole world is space-time, so sculpture too should be space-time. And to sometimes the world is so interesting that we invite people to be in a site for 24 hours. That is the function of the sculpture, to have a presence of people in an area where things are going to happen, where things have been happening, where now there is a sort of a quiet, a standstill. If you know about the history of the Ruhr area, it was full of industry. The industry collapsed, and they left green spaces like this, indeterminate green areas for kilometers. And they said, we have to make parks. But you cannot do a park in a city that is 50 kilometers long and 40 kilometers wide. It's just too much. So we said, we are going to make a sculpture to look at the spontaneous development of nature. But there was a thing going on. Look, it says, waiting for the river. It is a long story, I'll keep it short. The river was so polluted, it became a sewer. Because of industry. When industry collapsed, the first thing that they had to do was restore the river. Restoring a river takes 5 billion euros and 20 years. And it was such a happy, let's say, announcement that we said, we're going to invite the people to wait for the river. And at that moment, when we had the first reactions, they all said to us, yes, we want to wait for that river. And actually, and so the sculpture is not called house or wooden structure, it is a verb. The sculpture is there to do something. You're coming here to wait. The photographer tried to give an impression of waiting. And why this? Well, we had found out that the new river bed was going to be here. So we said, we will do some anticipation. We will already bring the bridge and then the water will come later. So this is a zigzag bridge. We stole that from Chinese designers. They say if you go in that direction, you see a white wall, and if you then turn, you see a door. It changes your perspective all the time. And it is really interesting when that zigzag is also covered by the pavilions. Inside outside, we are speaking about it all the time today. This is the inside connecting to the outside, but it is also, and now this is a bit theoretical, the outside is under the spell of the inside, not the other way around. We are the humans, we create structures, and what we see in nature is then under the spell of what we have done. So the effect was that with the zigzag bridge, everybody thought that this urban wilderness was a park. They thought it was constructed. But we did nothing. We only said, this is a bridge, you can look at the urban wilderness from here. And all of a sudden, because we made, let's say, a tool to look in different directions, they thought it was all arranged. So actually you don't need to make a park, you just make a pavilion or sculpture, and then it will have a human touch. You don't have to touch nature to create a park. It's really true. We discovered it, and our guests told us. We had 1,000 people sleeping in the bridge over the course of some years. It was traveling architecture. This was also traveling. When you want to do ensemble of landscape, society, and the artwork, then sometimes the theatre makers, they come to you. They perceive my work as scenography. So in this case, I was sort of responsible for the shape of this, and then they introduced me to help with the choreography, do some writing, and it became what they call an opera. All disciplines working together. This can move. Audience from the left, audience from the right, they meet. There's a body of water between them. They are looking at each other. There is a spell, and then suddenly the dome starts moving. And then you're in the dark with the enemy that comes from the other side. It's a metaphor for the First World War. This was, let's say, a European commission to make work dedicated to 100 years of the best war. And she's walking along that borderline and singing. And the audience is around her. And the dome becomes a whispering dome. It has a really intense acoustics. And during the day it was really nice to sit on the terrace and watch it being choreographed. You could see it closing, you heard the music, and you saw it opening again, and you saw that people that were entering here looking to the other side. It was quite sensational. And for me personally, the best thing was that the architecture or the shape or the space you create can cause a huge kind of concentration. Nothing has to happen. But being in that space on water is an intense experience. Hello, hello. Please take a seat.
Thank you.
Let me first show you this. We all know this. There's a town and there's a river in the middle, and the spaces at the canal or the river are occupied by industry. Now the intention of this city is to get rid of industry and to make the river part of the social environment. The river should be like a pavement, like a street, like a place where you can meet. But of course they were only thinking of the edges. And we said, you told us that there is such a big divide between the left and the right of the town. So we would like to offer you a bridge that you can put anywhere. It's a pontoon. The pontoon is as long as the river is wide. So it can travel. The wooden construction actually is a word. It says dwars ligger. That is someone who is obnoxious, who is dwars ligger. Okay. You're not the dwars ligger. An obnoxious person, and the city of Aalst is famous for its carnival, and they are really dwarsliggers, those people. Obnoxious. So, this is a description of their attitude in daily life.
Double G?
Sorry?
Double G? Dwarsligger, double G?
Yes, double G. So, you can, we said, you can move it, you can make bridges wherever you want, and things like this will happen in a park, or you know what I said? I will introduce you to the fine art of traveling with a bridge, and I will show you how you can use it. When we made a book, a collection of 20 ideas how you can use a bridge, a floating pontoon bridge for public life, which is, as you know, my mission, sculpture for public life. So I was in charge, and when we left, they used it, for instance, like this for having a swimming competition. And then something sad happened. It is not in the picture, but there was an uproar in the city. Aalst Carnival, UNESCO World Heritage. Many of those groups were opposing to the sculpture. This is the dwarsligger. And somewhere there it says it costed 120,000 euros. It was a protest. The carnival became a protest against the floating bridge. And we had made a mistake, a political mistake. Usually the artwork is commissioned by a commission. All parties are part of that, and you don't want a politician to give you directly the commission. But that was happening here, and we thought, oh, that's so great, you know, finally politicians also are so enthusiastic that they want to help us. But then the protest came, and then the politicians left. And then they said, we won't give you money for maintenance anymore. And now the bridge is used by a canoe club somewhere outside the city. And every 2 years someone says, "Ah, we should have it back in the city." So it is absent, but in the minds of the people it is very, very present. Wonderful. Now, this is almost landscape architecture. Very often we are invited to do an artwork. Please give me an artwork. I want a work of art. But for what? For whom? Why? They very often don't tell you. And art. In this case, they said, well, you know, we're going to make a new restaurant, and we are having a student hangout here on the campus, and we want to get rid of the cars. That's all. So maybe you talk to the landscape architect. And we said, well, that would be a good idea, because at the moment it is a disaster, and between us, the landscape architect has more money than the artist. So if you can win him for your work, then you have a bigger budget. So we said, we will invent an artwork which they have to do and pay. So we began demolishing the road and making this river of asphalt in that campus in the north. And it was Corona, and we learned how to direct people like these, with those heavy machineries and those heavy objects, to direct them via a telephone. To the left! It worked. And it worked, and we have confidence because we very often meet people doing construction work that have an artistic talent. When I tell them in 1 minute what the idea is and how it could be done, they know how to do it. So all of this was constructed without me being present. You can trust people. So in the end, we only paid for this. And the whole campus square from there to here, 200 meters, was done by the landscape architect in close collaboration. And what does it signify? Many people always ask. I like it, but what is it? It's always a very funny question. I like it, but what is it? When I tell them, the French over there, in a minute, they immediately say, of course. The campus is surrounded by a river, a very strong, brutal river that sometimes floods Grenoble. In fact, the campus is in a floodplain. The older buildings are all on columns. And we heard this legend that once the course of the river was changed by a tree that fell over. And legend has it that it happened right here. So if you tell them, this is your dangerous river, and that is the tree that is causing another course for the river, this is telling that legend. And everybody immediately said, oh yes, of course. Although it is sometimes also sort of abstract. And then there's tons of reasons for the looks of this. The trees we kept. This is the old asphalt of the old road. This is the course of the river. Concrete is a Grenoble invention. So we know that concrete is a pollutive material, but buildings. And it symbolizes the tree falling apart. I'm really sorry I didn't include a picture of the use of it. It is used intensely for theatre, for singing, for meeting, for studying. And there was even already a symphony orchestra in that space. And acrobats were on top of the sculpture and on top of the buildings. I need 10 more minutes. Will you have the attention? It's getting hot here. I'm going to open the door. As it sometimes happens, as is the case with him, I know him for 25 years, I know him for 45 years. Sometimes you meet again. I know him for 10 years, but we have never met. I know him digitally. It's also very funny. But in this case, Grahamom Eatoughom was the collaborator on the moving dome. And he invited me to come to Glasgow. He wanted to do the scenography with me for a very, very famous theatre play called the Risar. And the first thing arriving in Glasgow was, Andre, shall we do it inside or outside? And the outside. That's Alan, that's me. So we went to a park, and in the end we decided that we would have monologues because it is a play about autism and it is performed by people with autism. They need protection, they need quiet, they need their own rooms. So here's a room, there's a room, there's a room. And we made a maze to give the audience the feeling of having autism, not knowing where to go, being distracted by all kinds of stuff. And the distraction was made with this. You were not able to see where you were going. It was full of fences. So she was safe, she was in her own room, and all the others had to go after 10 minutes of performance to the next performance, but not knowing how to get there. Although it was clearly not having separations. You could see what was happening, you could see where you had to go, but you didn't know how. And that was a really marvelous, marvelous experience. It was, let's say, it sometimes happens, you do an invention, you don't know how it will work, and then you experience it yourself. You know, I'm very often also a visitor of my work. If you're a painter or a sculptor, you cannot visit your work. But I see the difference between this and that, you know, and because of those wonderful monologues, I was really moved, and I saw with how little materials and how simple materials you can change a city park, just like that. We had 1.5 kilometers of fence, and it's just this. You take it out of the van, and it is you carry it, the two of you, and then it becomes a fence of 15 meters. This was, it was for a theatre play in summer in Glasgow. And this is the final presentation where all the actors come together on one stage, and they do a kind of Japanese performance with masks. And as you can see, we had a huge crowd. There was a look, here she is, the writer of the Guardian newspaper. I saw her not participate. Who is that lady? I watched her all the time. And nobody knew her. And I said to my friend, I think she's writing. But well, let's see what happens. And she wrote this marvelous sentence. I don't know if it's the best theatre I've seen, but I will give it 5 stars because it was so intense, because it was so sincere, it was so moving and convincing. She came all the way from London to Glasgow up, and she came into this sort of miracle garden, which usually is a place of vandalism and criminality and garbage. So, usually I don't speak about awards and all that. This was so special. This is the last project, and now we're getting into the realm of topography. Topography is, of course, like, let's say, chemistry, a word meaning I'm dealing with that topic. But topography in landscape architecture is something different. That means shaping the ground, making a topography, not studying the typography, but shaping it. And they usually do this. Topography. A tidal sea, UNESCO World Heritage. Water comes and goes twice a day, leaving the sea wide open as a mud plain, and then after 6 hours it's just water. And that is the coast of Holland, Germany, Denmark. All of that is UNESCO World Heritage for nature. This village was once at the sea, at the coast. But you know, the land grows, you protect your land with dikes, and the dike became ever higher and higher, so they lost contact with the sea. And one guy, just one, this guy, 10 years ago he said, we have lost the connection with the sea, which is the origin of our life over here. It used to be a fisherman's village. So that was the first start, and then it became a rumor, and someone said, well, what do villagers think? Everybody thought it was a good idea, actually. We should have more contact with the sea again. You know what they said? This village is on a mound to be protected from the water, not a dike, but a mound. We will have another mound. We stopped making flood mounds, let's say 800 years ago, because we were doing the dikes. And so we could create a new one, but I didn't know how. So here they are crossing this immense sea defense, half of the village. And they are going into the marshlands, the salt marshes. When we came there for the first time, we immediately saw that. Now what is that? It's a bowl. It collects rainwater, sweet water, in a salty area for the cattle. So simple. And here they said we want a mount here. This is the size and this is the price. Well, and then art competition, and collecting money, and that took, I don't know, 6 years or so. And this is the most recent picture someone took 2 weeks ago, I think. So, top right is the village. These are the salt marshes. The flood is coming regularly. It has a very particular biotope, of course, and So this is the circle where these people stood. And because of that bowl of sweet water, we've got, you know, the circle. That is really a good idea. We're going to use that. How do you do a mound? The man who said 10 years ago, I want a mound. I said, well, you know, this is our land, and we will make this, and then there's a house on top of it. Because that is how it used to be 900 years ago. And we were asked to think about it, and the very first acknowledgement was those mounds were created over 100 years, 200 years. They were getting ever higher and higher and bigger. And in the end, there would be maybe a village or a church on top of it. And so we said, but that is, we should make people aware of that time span. You need to, let's say, be above sea level. So we just created the foundation for this in different levels. So the foundation is like this. This is 9 meters over sea level, and this is sea level. So if the water comes, it will flood the interior, and between the columns, you will rise and rise until you have reached the highest point. This is the design of that. So we said to them, our artwork is not a sacred artwork. This is a flat map. You can build when you want. Maybe in 20 years, people will say, well, we now have extra soil somewhere. And we said, well, you can make it higher. Why not? Create a new mound with this. But this here could be the end of it. These two rings, they indicate how high it could go. Of course, normally the church is on top of the mound in the middle. And we said to them, how would you like to use this space? Because it's protected area, it's a bird area. 7 organizations are in charge of this area. They rule the area. They allow you to go there with no more than 40 people, for instance. You cannot go there when the birds have arrived from the Mediterranean, all that. Well, they said, well, we have a large theatre, we have a great theatre tradition in our area. And that made us decide to make it not a mound, but to make an amphitheatre. So that you are protected against the wind and the water when you want to do something. So these are the columns that guide you up and down that mound. It's reused wood. This wood comes from ports in Holland. It is 100 years old. It will never decompose. And that is also the case for the rings. Actually, the whole project was done regenerative. The soil, that square is deeper than the other areas because we have used it to make this. We've rearranged, we have made topography. And of course, nature organization said, you cannot do that, you know, highly protected, and then we found someone working on a university who said, but if we do this, we can monitor the processes, the natural processes that are now happening while we have climate change. We want to monitor the changes in the movements of the sea, the changes in plant growth. So now this is, let's say, the scientific site for monitoring climate change. My department. The village then also said, of course, yeah, we need a memorial plaque, we need text, we have a poet, what shall we do? Well, in the end, it was decided that the 10 villagers would come up with phrases, and I would read them, and I would give them some phrases back. And so Rotterdam and this little village, we collaborated on the words that describe their history, how it was used in earlier times, the purpose of that mount for them, you know. They wanted to leave their mark, actually. This is our mount. We have collected all that money. We have worked on this for 6 years. But we know that the sea rules. That's what they always say. The sea dictates what is happening. And this is a phrase that reminds everyone of that. Where the tides rule. The tide coming in every day. Sorry?
It's happening.
This is 2 weeks ago. Usually the water is way up there. Well, let's say 300 meters from here. This happens a few times a year, but so this is actually quite a normal event over there. And this picture tells you that is how it was a couple of 100 years ago, when we didn't have the sea dike, the sea defense. The sea is always coming. And that village that wanted this was once also surrounded by water. And many people use this, you know, to tell about the rising of the sea levels. Yeah, and then I say, yeah, it's really good, but it is already happening 2,000 years ago. And those people know how to live with the water. So, I think this is it. Yes, I've come to an end.